everybody, and welcome back to Base Paths and Brewskis. Today's episode 19, a little bit late once again, kind of becoming the huge here. Today, Dom and I are recording live together. Came up to lacrosse last night, had a lot of drinks. Therefore, the beer of the pod is just an energy drink. We're recording in the morning after quite the long night. So C4 Hawaiian pineapple is what I'm sipping. I think Dom's got the sugar-free monster. Right?
Yeah, the Zero Ultra White Monster is what I'm sipping on.
Nice. That's always a solid one. Let's jump right in. Once again, we'll start with a player spotlight. Today, we have Robert Gasser. Really just been a stud. He's been exactly what we hoped as a left-handed pitcher coming in. He limits runs, kind of like what we talked about last episode. The main goal of every pitcher is just to, limit the opponent from scoring, and that's been exactly what he's doing. I mean, if you look, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it on your screen. If you're just listening on Spotify, his average exit velocity is 97th percentile. He's got a lot of other big red categories on the Baseball Savant page, like walk percent, barrel percent, hard hit percent, ground ball percent, pretty high as well. So really just kind of having, batters put the ball in play. He's not giving them free bases by walking them. He's been decent with his chase stuff too. So he's been pretty good. His ERA plus is at 156, which is kind of a stat used to compare how he's been pitching to the rest of the league, along with the park he's in, and along with kind of the stats of the season and what's normal for a pitcher. So what stands out to you most, Dom?
I just looked it up. He is a lot like Wade Miley, who we likely lost for the year.
Yeah.
He's a guy who most time is pitching to contact. He's not going to be a huge strikeout guy, but he's going to get a lot of weak ground ball, fly ball outs, and that's a great thing for the staff. I mean, a lot of his pitch counts have been pretty low. He's been able to go in, six, 7 innings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what stood out to me is he bears a lot of resemblance to Wade Miley in that way.
Yeah, I think that's another important thing for this squad specifically is to have guys like Robert Gasser who are younger, fresher arms that can go with some length into games because, a lot of our starters, Colin Ray, as good as he's been this season, rarely is completing 6th innings and going to 7th innings. Who else? Bryce Wilson typically isn't going past even 5 most of the time.
Myers.
Yeah, Myers, I mean, when he's not giving up a shitload of home runs, he's, definitely not going 6. So, sorry, the dog's kind of tweaking out. We're in a new little office studio here, so she's kind of trying to discover stuff too. I don't know what she's getting, but anyway, let's move on from Gasser. Stop glazing him. Had some glazed donuts this morning. We're in the glazing mood.
Glaze.
Oh. All right. First game was a 5-1 Brewer win. Adames, we'll start with player of the game. He was just kind of been hitting the cover off the ball this whole series, and this was a great way to start it. Yeah, do you want to jump into Adams's performance at all?
Yeah, especially this game. It was a 1-0 game or 0-0 game.
Yeah,
going into like the 7th inning, 7th, 8th inning.
Yep.
When we kind of hit that explosion, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
I think.
Yeah, I think we were down 1-0. Yeah.
Yeah, and then William Contreras hit like right before Adames hit a ball 105 off of Nick Madrigal's shin.
Yeah.
And that brought in our first run, but then Willie Adames with the 3-run home run to kind of open it up going into the 8th, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was
going into the 9th actually. So so that was huge.
Yeah.
We put a charge into that ball and that was huge, especially since we gave up a run in the top of the 9th. If he doesn't hit that, who knows what happens.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so you're right. So we must have been up. It must have been a 0-0 game or a 1-0 game or something because that error was huge.
Yeah.
Which obviously with things like errors, it's kind of tough to determine whether or not like the player should have made the play, but when the ball is hit that hard. But I definitely think Madrigal makes that play most of the time. So kind of like we had talked about in previous episode of it seemed like the Brewers had kind of had some bad luck with whether it was umpires or the ball bouncing under the fence as a ground rule double and then runner doesn't get to score. That happened in the Miami series. I think this was kind of a play that started to shift the tide back to us, the baseball gods giving us a bounce, giving us a play, and that completely opened up the eighth inning there. And we were able to, Hobie Milner came in, obviously gave up a run, but we were able to, put the game away essentially at that point as well, which shout out to Churio as well. He was hitting better that game.
2 for 4.
Yeah.
That's double.
Yeah, and it's good to see when he's hitting the ball. It's obviously going to be a big confidence booster. I also though think Churio in this game, it was either this game or game two, which we'll talk about in a second, but there was some questions on his fielding effort almost.
Mhm.
He was kind of not giving up on balls, but plays that he is athletic enough to go make, like diving plays or whatever it may be, tracking balls down. It seemed like he just wasn't putting in the full effort or making, the full dive, the full reach out. And I think he kind of got talked to pretty good by a couple different guys on the team, along with coaches and Pat Murphy. And later in the series, then he ends up making a diving play. So I think that kind of goes to show how good this coaching staff is and how good the leaders on the team are as well, that they were able to talk to him and kind of, slap him back into reality a bit and let him go out there and make plays, which I mean, I think that's good to see, and obviously a lot of growth. But what do you think about Churio's development so far this season?
Yeah, I think we're finally starting to see a bit of a tide shift. I think early on there, especially in his at bats, it was rough watching him swing, these breaking balls. He hadn't seen breaking stuff like this in the minors. This is the big leagues.
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing a lot better approaches from him in his at bats, but like you said, in defense too. That diving play, I don't know what game this is. I think it was game 2.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was nice to see, him not be so timid,
Mhm.
which, sometimes with outfielders, it's kind of like a confidence thing. Like if you miss it, it's going behind you. It's
Yeah.
likely at least 2, 3 bags.
Hmm.
So, getting that reinforcement from your teammates and your manager, like, hey, we got your back, like go do what we know you can do and finally see it pay off, that's huge to see for his development.
Yeah, and I guess it kind of came out wrong when I was describing the situation. I don't think, like you were kind of saying, it's almost uh being more scared of making a mistake than being more excited to go make a play.
Yeah.
Which when you're young and like still trying to find your footing, obviously that's going to creep into your head. And I think the confidence that was built by the coaches and players is fantastic. But another thing I look at for Churio though is like he's got the bag already. Like he got signed, he's got his money. So like, dude, they're not. You can have room for errors here, and it'll be like you can just kind of let it play, and hopefully they're kind of telling him that like, hey, dude, you're 20 years old or whatever, and your salary next season is in the millions. Like, not many guys can say that. So,
You'll have a paycheck guaranteed for the
Yeah.
next 8 years.
right, like you're set, and possibly more beyond that if you play well. But yeah, so I hope that that's kind of a little reassuring for him too. I know millions upon millions of dollars would definitely give me more confidence as well. But good thing I don't have to deal with that problem, right? Game two, we lost 3-6. Spoiler alert, only loss of the series. Cuck the Fubs. Yeah, this was just it was just kind of a hard game to watch in terms of offense for most of it. Freddie Peralta pitched pretty great. I mean, had some base runners and got into trouble. It's I think in his last inning of work, I want to say there was either 2 or 3 runners on when he got taken out. But he ended up striking out 11, and I mean, I think it was the first 6 batters he faced. It was like 5 strikeouts. So
Yeah.
I mean, like if you look through the order of the Cubs, leadoff hitter striking out twice. Suzuki struck out and had the hat trick. Ian Happ 2 strikeouts. Bush 2 strikeouts. Swanson couldn't touch anything in the series, which was nice seeing because he's kind of been a Brewers killer in the past. So I think that was great to see Freddie doing that, and I mean he's just really been consistent. I know like the 3.61 ERA, I don't think quite speaks to how good of a pitcher he's been this year. He's really been an ace and stepped into his role well, and I'm excited to see it going forward. But what did you think of the pitching matchup between Freddie Peralta and then Ben Brown, who also went out through 7 innings and
Yeah,
shut piece, no hit,
yeah,
no hit us.
yeah,
Only had a couple walks and 10 strikeouts. So, what did you think about that pitching matchup?
it was a good matchup. I mean, it honestly reminded me a lot of Freddie's last start in Miami when it was a 1-0 ball game, and his only mistake was a home run. That's what I was thinking most of the game is like, we're really gonna lose because the offense can't get it going, and he had one mistake pitch
Yep.
all game. So yeah, I mean, he had a couple base runners, but that was really the only bad spot that I noticed. And then Willie, didn't, when you're not getting run support when you're pitching a gem like that, I'm sure it kind of creeps into your mind as a pitcher. Like,
Yeah.
he's shoving. I mean, 11 strikeouts and 5 2/3, and we're still being no hit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of like a good comparison for that is, in football, when you have the best player on your team is your quarterback, everyone else is kind of having a shitty year, and you're in a game, and the quarterback just feels like he has to do everything for the team. He's running, trying to make impossible throws. Like that's kind of what it reminds me of when they put Peralta in positions like this. I mean, and he goes out and does it. He throws, 11 Ks is like pretty incredible, especially considering he gets most of his strikeouts just off of a dirty fastball, which is that's really cool to see, especially with all the sweepers and everything that's kind of becoming popular. It's nice to see a dude just go out there and pump some cheddar. But yeah, he was touching like 98, 99 at like 105 pitches into the game. So
Yeah.
I am not at all worried about like the sustainability of Freddie as we speak now. I mean, hopefully I don't like eat those words later. But yeah, the pitching staff then after Freddie, a little just kind of, I don't know, Hobie Milner's he's been a little rough to watch lately. Obviously, gave up a run the day before, came in and gave up a couple more in this one. And I think the pitching staff of the Cubs really just kind of outdueled us. It's kind of too bad Ben Brown didn't get to try to finish his shutout. I mean, obviously, I'm not a Cubs fan, but it would have been kind of cool for him. Especially, I think he's a rookie this year, or at least he's a young dude, so that would have been cool to see. But yeah, not much else I really wanted to touch on in this. The box score looks kind of shitty when you take they must have replaced their DH. Yeah, they took Yelich and moved him to left field. So then you have pitchers that have to be pinch hit for kind of like before we had the DH at all. Kind of just messy looking. And overall, just kind of a meh game. I don't know. I didn't really enjoy watching it as much as the other ones. But anything you wanted to say to kind of wrap this one up?
Yeah, shout out Elvis Peguero for walking 3 dudes in 1 inning.
Yeah,
But then also striking out too.
Yeah, so I mean, he's been good, and it's tough because like when guys do that, as long as they don't give up runs, it's kind of like, if you're only pitching 3 to 4 innings a week,
Yeah.
and 3 out of your 4 innings are no runs, like I can't be that mad at you. I don't care how you do it, especially as a reliever. Now, if Freddie Peralta was going out and walking 6 guys,
Yeah.
a couple starts in a row, then it's concerning because that's a big part of each game that he's involved in that's, being affected by the walks he's giving up. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, as long as Peguero can keep the runs off the board, I mean, a 3.04 ERA is pretty good. So we'll move on to game 3. 10-6 Brewer win. This was a fun one just because a lot of offense. Brewers really just exploded. Blake Perkins, I mean, I think we have to talk about him being just the star of the show. Not only the defensive plays that we've kind of become accustomed to with him, robbing the home run. I think it was like he said it was like the 3rd or 4th time in his life he's actually done that in a game. So that was pretty cool. Had a diving catch kind of moving into left center, and then another catch that went kind of under the radar for me. He was moving back into right center and made a catch look routine that was probably extra bases for most other center fielders. But then he hit a home run as well. So, I mean, he was kind of balling out. What impressed you most about Blake Perkins this game specifically, and if you have to narrow it down to one thing, and what are you most looking forward to with Perkins going forward?
I mean, yeah, man, just his defense. I mean, I think realistically, he's probably one of the best defensive center fielders in all of baseball. With, when you have somebody of his speed, and then just his instincts and ability to go get the ball, I
Mhm.
think is super underrated, especially in center field where there's, you're roaming a lot of area. You're in charge of that entire outfield, and got to make the calls, and when you can go gap to gap like he can, I mean, that's a great thing to have. And going forward, I think it's gonna be a huge asset for our defense.
Mhm. Yeah, and especially when, we looked at Robert Gasser and obviously I think the strikeouts will start coming more for Gasser as he kind of settles in, gets more comfortable, moves past just trying to get through innings. He's done a great job. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but the more we have pitchers like that who are, trying to elicit contact from the batters they're facing, having the best defense out on the field is vital. I mean, we have Terang, Adames, and Ortiz in our infield, who are all, I would say, Gold Glove level elite fielders. Yelich in left is not that bad of a fielder. I think he has a Gold Glove in his career. I'm not 100% sure if you want to fact check me there. Otherwise, obviously, Sal Frelick and right, Churio and right, kind of Churio's making some strides as well. But having Perkins in center, I mean, center fielder is one of the most important positions, and when you have a guy that can run down like that, that's pretty incredible. So, I'm excited about the fielding as well. Does he have a Gold Glove?
He does have a gold glove
Knew it as
in
a Marlin, right?
2014.
Yep, yep. Okay, so Yelich still got some in the tank. He made a nice throw earlier this season, which kind of stuck in my head. But speaking of fielding, I did want to talk a bit about. We'll go to a bit of a more negative connotated side here. William Contreras obviously is smoking the ball. 903 OPS, just shy of Yelich for team lead. It seems like every game he goes out, hits the ball hard, hits for extra bases, or at least just gets on base. His defense does seem to be taking a bit of, he's taking a bit of a step back or at least coming back down to reality a bit. He's had some, balls bounce off his glove or, pass balls that he maybe would have stopped. Do you think that is more having to do with the fatigue of playing every day, whether it's catching or DHing? Or do you think that it's potentially just that William Contreras had, a really good however many games leading up to, kind of this point of the season, and he's kind of starting to, be exposed for some weaknesses he was covering up.
I'd probably, I'd guess that it's mainly the fatigue. I mean, he hasn't missed a game, and he's only really DHing like once a week, maybe
Mhm.
twice. But then there is that middle finger injury on his glove hand, so I'm sure it doesn't make it easy to go out there and catch a lot, and it
Yeah.
probably screwing with his confidence when trying to frame stuff
Yeah.
or pick stuff when that finger hurts him. So I think, once we move past that and he gets that kind of healed up, maybe he'll DH a couple days in a row just to give him a break. I think he'll be fine. I
Yeah.
think I never thought he was like a superstar level defender, but as long as he can be like above average to even average with
Mhm.
his hitting ability, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Gary's done a great job catching, and we can kind of talk about Gary a little more coming up. He's been hitting the ball a lot better too, so it's nice having them both in the lineup every day. I mean, I know we saw a stat last night that said it basically said that William Contreras and Gary Sanchez were the best combination of catchers in the MLB in nearly every stat,
Yeah.
at least hitting wise. I don't know if it showed fielding or not, but I mean, Gary Sanchez is possibly a better defensive catcher than William Contreras sometimes out there. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we have two great guys out there catching, and I also think a little point to add on with the William Contreras thing, potential injury. I mean, his brother did break his arm trying to frame a pitch,
Yeah.
and that whether he knows it or not, that's got to be in your head at least a bit. You're conscious of it now, which obviously sucks for Wilson, another great another great big league catcher. He's going to be missing some time now because of that, but I think that could potentially have something to do with it. But let's move on to something a little more positive from this game. Shota Imanaga, I think he had given up 5 runs in like 50 some innings coming into this game. And we shelled him. I mean, 7 runs. He just really couldn't seem to get us out. He's got nasty stuff. I mean, he's got a nasty splitter, I think it is. Um, and we were just kind of hitting it. I don't know if he was just catching too much plate or what was going on, but I loved it.
I did see that he had a 12-day rest before the start, so maybe
He missed a rain. It was a rain delay, so
I
he
got
missed
you,
his
yeah,
start.
so he missed the start, maybe that kind of threw him out of rhythm. But yeah, his ERA going into this game was like 0.94, and then after this it skyrocketed to 1.8.
Yeah,
which is
still
very
elite.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it shows that he's hittable.
yeah.
And to be honest, I was expecting going into this game like this. Of course, this will be the game we start raking when it's against the Cubs' best starting pitcher when we haven't been able to really hit any of their starters all year before this. So it was great to see, but starting with that Yelich home run in the first, nuke.
Yeah. Yeah. That thing was a shot. I mean, when you can start off a game like that, and I think that was a 2-run home run, I believe. I thought someone was on base.
Yeah, Terang was on.
Yeah.
Or Ortiz was on because he led off. That was his first time leading off.
Yeah, that was cool to see too. I liked getting to see Joey Ortiz lead off. It's nice seeing him move up in the order.
Especially since he's playing so well. I mean,
Yeah,
the game
he's the hot hand. I mean, between him and Terang being, guys who were up there early in the order, Shota must be a lefty. I'm guessing that's why Ortiz led off.
Yeah.
I guess I couldn't picture his. I haven't seen him enough to can confidently say that, but seeing Ortiz and Terang kind of platoon that leadoff spot while still both playing every day is really nice to see. In terms of the pitching for us, I mean, obviously the Cubs they had Imanaga and Hendricks, Hendricks I'm sure got DFA'd after this. I'm guessing he was just kind of a stopgap, just trying to fill up some innings for him.
Yeah.
But
need to take him out back. And mice and men.
Yeah, put him down.
Yeah, sorry, old man.
Think about the rabbits, George.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and in terms of our pitching, I mean, Koenig, I love this dude. I don't know what it is about him. I like that he's an opener for us. He's a solid lefty. He's kind of just a big dude in general, just a bit of an intimidating figure on the mound. I went out 2 innings, struck out 3. Enoli Paredes. Stud.
Run yet.
I mean, I know he's only had 4 or 5 innings pitched or whatever it is, but the dude's kind of been a stud so far. He goes out there and Ks people and just kind of, he'll casually pump like 95, 96, and it looks nice. Mitch White, I believe, was DFA'd after this game, sadly. For some, sadly for him. Obviously, I never want to see the downfall of another human, but I mean, I think this was like his 3rd big league club just this season alone, and it's today is what, June 1st?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of
seen as when he went into the game for us, it was like waving the white flag.
Yeah.
Blowouts earlier in the season, so no.
Yeah.
We're up big, and he gives up 2 runs, 1 earned, but
yeah. I mean, he got on base somehow. So
yeah.
I mean. Yeah, Bryce Wilson kind of did normal Bryce Wilson stuff. 4 innings, 3 runs, whatever. I mean, it's fine, and if your offense is producing, that's fantastic. Which it kind of sucks to see that Bryce Wilson can. I don't want to call this a bad outing, but a somewhat mediocre outing for a starter. And he, obviously doesn't get a result, but it's a team win. And then Freddie goes out and strikes out of 11 dudes. And he just couldn't really get the run support for it. But I think it maybe would have been cool to see another Koenig open Bryce Wilson follow. That seems to work well.
Yeah.
Obviously it did against Boston. It worked pretty good. And I think that could have been something. I don't think Craig Counsell's tiny little brain could have handled what to do in that situation when we've had an opener.
He would have left the lineup the same.
Yeah, I think he would have just probably went back to the clubhouse and just chilled. But yeah, he we haven't really even talked about Craig being back, but kind of didn't want to give him the time of day. Oh, I thought I had to sneeze. Did. Uh, um, yeah, otherwise, I mean, besides Mitch White, pretty good pitching performance from the team. I think the six runs that we gave up is a little misleading as to how dominating the game was. Like, I mean, if you would just watch the game and not be counting the runs, you'd probably think it was like a 12-2 game, not
Yeah.
10-6. So,
Yeah.
moving on to game four, 6-4 win for the Brewers. Another one that was just kind of like a solid game, and Colin Ray, we kind of talked about earlier. I know we talked about him yesterday. Not recording. Kind of, he went out 5 1/3, gave up a run, struck out, five. It's decent. Payamps came out, also gave up a run. Hudson was a little bit shakier. Something we're not used to seeing was him giving up 2 homers. He had been pretty lights out up to this point, over a decent, sample size going in. Like his ERA wasn't over like two innings. I mean, it was a decent amount.
Yeah,
I don't know how many innings he's on the season, but I mean he'd been pitching really well, so maybe just kind of needed to get that out of the system, and now he'll be back.
Yeah, he's at over 30 innings now, so it's not like a small sample size.
Yeah.
Like for a reliever, that's
That's pretty good. I mean, it's probably more than some of our starters right now. So
he's a guy they put in a high leverage situation, so it's kind of something you figure is going to happen eventually.
Right.
Everybody gets beat at some point.
Right.
And I think one of those runs got attributed to Payamps because it was a hit he gave up.
Right.
So, overall, you'd hate to see it, especially when we were winning.
Yeah.
But what can you do? They're big league hitters, and you're gonna get got eventually.
Yep. And I mean, I think like that kind of was shown early when, Colin Ray gave up, I think, a first inning homer to Belly.
Yeah.
So that kind of showed like, these are the Cubs, you have to take them serious. I mean, they have some really good players on the team.
They're all professionals.
Yeah.
This is
Right. I mean, like when you look at the lineup, like you would expect, honestly, probably more wins than they have based on some of the names, but that's, why we go and play the games and don't just play the game on paper. So, otherwise, in terms of the offense, I gave Sal Frelick a craft brew player of the game as well. Hustling, I think this was the game he had that slide on Joey Ortiz double, and I think it was a first to home.
Yeah,
because
like
he was
down
flying.
third base line too.
Yeah, it was not many guys score on that, and Sal Frelick, it was a really close play at the plate. He kind of just, I mean, his face was almost scraping against the dirt as he slid because he was so low. He made himself such a small target to tag and scored the run. And I mean, that just goes to show like what kind of player he is. Yeah, he's able to hit the ball, get on base. I mean, 670 OPS is, for the defense he plays, isn't terrible. I would like to see that come up a bit, but I mean, his 254 average is better. Probably before the sabermetric analytic time, he probably would have been, considered a much better hitter than we look at him to be now.
Yeah.
But the hustle plays he makes, fantastic. He's always been so solid in the field as well. So obviously exciting to see him. And I just think this young core is really coming together between, like, just in this lineup alone. I mean, Terang went out. He's always playing good. This game, he's on base twice at least. It seems like every game. Frelick, Ortiz, Perkins isn't that young, but I mean, he's new to the show. I mean, he's not been a big leaguer for very long. And, you had some guys on the bench too, like Chorio, and I mean, we got guys in the bullpen too, starting pitching. I mean, it's just overall a pretty young team, and it's been really impressive watching them. And what excites you most going forward with some of these young guys?
Sometimes I forget that William Contreras could be considered one of these young guys.
True,
I mean,
true.
he's only 26 or 20, early 27. So
Yeah.
You look at him, and this game alone, 0 for 4, not a great game, but he had 2 hard hits, which is, according to some baseball savant, a hit over 95 miles an hour. So he's striping the ball.
Yeah.
You just get unlucky sometimes. But yeah, this young core built around him, I think, is going to be huge, especially when you add in the veteran presence of Yelich, Adames, Hoskins.
Hmm.
Gary Sanchez too,
Yeah. Oh,
who
yeah.
shine in this game. Uh,
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. We were
I'll
both
say it
we were
again.
both kind of, admitting like we were a little too harsh on Gary right away. There was a reason, he was an all-star, two-time all-star. I want to say he was like a 2017, 2018 silver slugging catcher. I mean, for the Yankees. I mean, he was with the Yankees for a while and kind of a staple for them. And I mean, he's kind of starting to show that again. And also just the fat lips he's packing. I mean,
In the
it's got
time,
that
yeah.
has to be, plus 10 for team morale.
Yeah.
I mean, just dude looks kind of like a fun guy to be around. And everyone just seems like they're having fun, which I mean, obviously when you're winning, that's great. Especially the young guys, when you're winning, the highs feel really high. And I think it's about limiting, if there's a 5-game skid, 6-game skid, that's bound to happen. That's baseball. To see how they respond to that, especially being, closer to our age when, things, a couple bad days kind of seem like the end of the world.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see how they respond to that. And more importantly, how the leaders like Adames, I'd consider Contreras a leader,
Yeah.
Yelich, Freddie Peralta, guys like that, and see, how they help straighten up guys. I think Reese Hoskins is another guy that
He's a big
once
dugout guy, it seems like.
Mhm.
Even when he was out, you'd see him in the dugout. They'd cut to him and, he's cheering on his teammates,
Mhm.
getting excited, celebrating homers. I mean, that's huge for morale.
Yeah. And I think he seems to be, kind of spreading an attitude of, you can't give a shit about who you're playing. You can't give a shit about what just happened. Just go out there, do the best you can do on that play. And I mean, Reese Hoskins is a fierce competitor, kind of notoriously a guy who gets into shit with other teams. And I mean, we've seen that already.
Early, the third
So
series.
yeah, so I mean, like
The
and
opening day.
yeah, and I mean, like it just kind of seems like these shenanigans continue with the team, but it's so far it's been very positive. I mean, like watching our first base coach cuss out the other team's pitcher because he was being a bitch about us bunting.
Yeah.
I mean, like not many other teams have a first base coach like QB that's out doing that, which
Yeah.
that's really cool.
And I think that starts at the manager position. Craig would maybe kind of not would try to keep out of that, keep the guys out of that, but Murphy almost seems to encourage the
Mhm.
guys to have an edge, and I think that's awesome because he himself has one too.
Oh, yeah.
He's not afraid to cuss out a player and whatever.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely walks around with his chest out. Like he doesn't hide in the shadows like Counsell, hide under his hat. Like, I don't know. Like, it's nice seeing Murphy. I think that comes too from being in the college game for so long. He was a
Mhm.
college coach for a long time. I want to say Notre Dame, Arizona State were a couple of the places he was at. And I think that's really important in college is,
Like grittiness.
just like sticking things out. You can't show any signs of weakness when, you're constantly fighting for your job, you're constantly fighting for scholarship money. I mean, like it's a very intense, and obviously the big leagues is the same way, almost elevated with contracts and stakes as well. But I mean, I think he's brought that intensity to these guys and given them a sense of urgency where I just don't feel like Craig ever had that, and that kind of showed when we get to high leverage games or moments or playoff games, and we would just kind of give up almost.
Yeah, when in a moment where Pat Murphy will kind of be at the top of the dugout steps, you'd see Craig Counsell kind of sitting in the back steps.
Yeah, like just taking notes almost. And
Yeah, like we're it's a playoff game, dude.
Yeah. And I think another big contributor to the team as well, maybe not things you see happen very often, is just the entire coaching staff, including I don't know how many teams do have this or if this is like a first time thing, but an associate manager, Ricky Weeks.
Mhm.
I think he's another dude who, listening to the games, whenever his name is brought up, I mean, people are constantly talking about the kind of baseball knowledge he has, the control over the clubhouse that he has, not in a bad way, but just he kind of has an eagle eye over things that could potentially be problems. And I mean, he was one of the first guys to talk to Churio after that defensive play.
Yeah.
And obviously things changed because the next day he had a diving play. So I think obviously the entire coaching staff is doing a great job of delegating everything. I mean, there's not really a weakness in our team right now. I mean, potentially you could say some of the pitching,
Yeah,
starting
the starting
pitching,
pitching
some
could.
offensive consistency, maybe. But that's just stuff that kind of is every team. I mean, the
Yeah,
Braves had Ronald Acuna Jr. and I mean, he could barely hit this season before sadly tearing his ACL, I
yeah. I mean,
believe.
it's baseball. You can't, you're not going to go score 6, 7 runs every game.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, the biggest thing for me was just starting pitching. Trying to find one or two guys that can be behind Peralta and give us good quality outings.
Yeah.
Which I think we found one in Gasser. He's
Oh
been
yeah.
so far lights out.
Oh yeah.
But then, trying to clean up some of these starts from Rhea, Hudson, or not Hudson, Wilson, Tobias Myers as well.
Yeah.
Clean those up so they can try to go a bit longer and give the bullpen a bit longer break. But other than that, like you said, there's not many weaknesses. And, when one appears, Murphy and the team aren't afraid to make changes. If somebody's not hitting well against a certain side, it's not going to take 2 months for the lineup to change. He's going to change it immediately to try
Yeah.
to fix it.
Right. And I think the team can get behind that, and that's also giving them that sense of urgency as well to where, I'm sure every single guy wants to be out there every day. And they've been trying to do a lot of platoon stuff to start the season. And I mean, we saw times where, Monasterio was leading off and I think that happened at almost every game in the Marlins series where we had that left-handed lineup, and it kind of didn't work. And look, now it changed. I mean, Joey Ortiz was leading off because he's been hot, and look what happened. I mean, it worked out well. We shelled one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in the NL this season, in the whole MLB, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to show the strengths of the coaching staff as well. Because I know it's not just Pat Murphy making those decisions, but I mean that's what we see is what he's doing as a manager making the lineup card. But I think there's a lot of moving pieces behind the scene that's making this team as successful as they are. But we'll kind of skip on here unless you had anything else to add on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when it comes out, there's also no ego, it seems, with the team. When changes like that happen, it doesn't seem to be, at least from our perspective, anybody getting upset or, butthurt about not being in the lineup against a certain handed pitch. They just kind of accept it and they'll do whatever they can to help the team win, whether it be pinch hitting, pinch running, whatever it is. So that's one of the biggest things that I've seen is nobody on the team currently has too big of an ego to be above what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it too. Is being able to accept the coaching. I mean, coaching, analytics, the style of the manager. I mean, none of it works if the players aren't, receptive to it. And I think they all pretty much are, and it's cool to see even guys like Gary Sanchez, who is a veteran. He's proven himself. He's had some down seasons in between his Silver Slugger time, but I mean he's come back in and he's pretty much accepted any role they gave him. And that's kind of where I wanted to jump into the series awards, where I gave the MVP of the series to Gary Sanchez just because his hitting is better than I kind of was witnessing at the beginning of the season, where I think he started like 0 for 11 or something like that. Just couldn't seem to even buy a hit. He's hitting for power now. He's doing a great job catching. I mean, he's always been a decent catcher behind the plate in terms of his skills. I know his framing's gotten a lot better as a Brewer catcher. I mean, that seems like pretty much any guy we throw back there has elite framing all of a sudden.
Lab go brr.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's seriously though, like the catching lab must be a legit thing. Like I don't know what they do, but I'm glad we have it.
Our development system, honestly, we just keep finding guys with certain traits that we can use to win.
Yep.
And they keep exploiting them, and it works.
Yeah.
We're leading the NL Central. We're 10 games above 500 now. So I mean, something's working.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like the kind of going off on a tangent now, but I think the style of player that we're definitely going for is someone who is a solid athlete, because I think the better the athlete in terms of, speed, strength, agility, just all around mobility, I think the more of that you have, the more capable you are of learning new skills or or, being able to harness in that athleticism and put it out in a controlled movement. I think that's been a big part of the team. As well as just fielding. We have very good fielding, and I think that helps. There isn't the Madrigal error often with the Brewers. We oftentimes don't have errors like that.
Joey Ortiz is not making that error.
Yeah, like
play. I'd confidently say 10 times out of 10 he makes that play, even though it was a hard hit ball.
right.
He's a guy who plays with a shortstop. He moved in the third, and it's like,
yeah,
he never really skipped a beat.
Right. I mean, you don't lose that athleticism that it takes to play shortstop, and I think he's a guy that I personally think he will be a shortstop for the Brewers in the future and potentially a mainstay for a while, which is exciting. Which leads into our current shortstop, who I gave the Barrel Blaster Award to, Willy Adames. I mean, he just kind of ripped the cover off the ball this series, was hitting. I really was impressed with how well he's able to stay back on the ball, let it travel into the zone. There was one specific swing. I don't remember which game it was, but he had an off-speed pitch, and you could see he was ahead of it, kept his hands back, had the foot planted, kind of gave himself a second, and his hands are so fast, he just threw him through the zone and dumped one into left field, and I think it was a double. So
yeah,
I mean, that was a really impressive swing. And overall, I mean, he just kind of crushes the ball. He's should be our home run leader. I think he's had actually like 3 home runs robbed this season, which
maybe
sucks.
even more.
He had the one Bellinger robbed in game, was it 3?
2.
Two?
The no-hitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, to keep the no-hitter going. And that was in like the start of the 7th inning.
Yeah.
So it was pretty deep into the no-hitter. And yeah, Adames, he had a home run and Bellinger brought it back. So I mean that would have been his 10th on the season. There were a couple other ones that probably should have been out of the park too.
Which is also crazy that Rhys Hoskins is still our home run leader, and he was out almost 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean he missed significant time, and
I mean,
obviously he doesn't get as much time playing regardless because of his I don't want to say he's a bad defender, but they certainly have better options at first base. I want to put it in a nice way.
Yeah.
And so being just a DH when you have a guy like Contreras and Sanchez who are also kind of doing those DH duties.
Yeah.
So I mean he's obviously a guy you need to work into the lineup, but it's definitely the DH is not just his spot. I mean there's other guys who deserve it too.
And I think, the struggles we've seen from Jake Bauers, wow, we're really off on a tangent now, but
yeah, whatever.
I think the potential hitting benefits that he provides, I think warrants maybe a below average defense, especially with the struggles we've seen from Jake Bauers more recently. We know Jake Bauers can hit for power.
Yeah.
Power.
Power.
But, lately it's just been it's
been tough.
Yeah, it's been tough. And then, even in this series, he had 3 errors in a game, So, I think Hoskins will. I forgot what I was going to say.
Go back to first.
Yeah, I think, with Gary Sanchez and Contreras flip-flopping that DH role, who are 2 hitters that need to be in the lineup at this point. They're both, getting hot.
Yeah.
I think they have to keep Hoskins at first because you can't keep his hitting out of the lineup.
Right.
But you also can't take out Gary Sanchez or William Contreras, God forbid.
Right. And at least right now, I mean, like that could all change if Gary kind of shits the bed again, or if, William is maybe just needing to focus on being a catcher and take a couple days off. I mean, we definitely have then room for other guys to DH as well. But yeah, as of now, I mean, I think having Hoskins, Sanchez, and Contreras in the lineup every day is going to give us our best chance of winning. Yeah. The crafty pitcher, it was kind of tough. I think a lot of dudes have been pitching well. It's tough because I want to give the crafty pitcher to relievers once in a while too. It's just hard when, you've got Freddie who's striking out 11 guys in a start, and, just he's pitching just more innings over a series than some of these other guys. But like, I think shout out, and I'm not trying to take away from Freddie at all here, but shout out to like Paredes, even Hudson. I think just overall on the season has been one of our better pitchers, more reliable guys. Jared Koenig has been solid. Colin Ray kind of just goes out and does his thing every start. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. You can kind of pencil him in for probably less than 6 innings, but more than
3 runs.
5. Yeah, yeah,
Give up 3
one
runs.
to 3 runs,
Yeah.
maybe a home run in there, strike out maybe 4 to 6 guys. I mean, it's pretty consistent. Which we kind of talked about this when we were walking downtown last night. Was that like that's pretty much like. I mean, if you have a guy like that, it might be seen as like a very average or mid starting pitcher, but consistency at the starting pitcher is like one of the most important things. Like
Yeah.
you're going out there, they're trusting you to go out and pitch 5 to 6 innings, and if you can give them the same thing and be, rinse, repeat, just do the same thing over. I mean, it's very easy for Murph to probably game plan around how he's gonna throw pitchers in after him. So
Yeah.
that's cool too. And I just kind of wanted to touch on the opener one last time. I think that can really benefit us with the lack of depth that our starting pitchers go to in games.
Mhm.
I mean, very rarely do we see a guy go past 6 innings. I don't know if we have this season. Maybe Freddie, maybe
Freddie and
Gasser.
Gasser are the only two that I know have gone past
Yeah.
6 innings. But yeah, I mean, that opener is an interesting tactic when we don't seem to have that full lineup of starters that can go 6 innings consistently, which is hard to do
Right.
regardless of what team it is. I
Right.
just think recently, with all the starting pitcher injuries we have already, it's been even harder to find people that are consistently doing it. And
Yeah.
I mean, like you said with Ray, you can pencil them in for less than 6,
Yeah.
couple runs given up, which is fine for, a back of the rotation guy,
Right.
4 or 5. But the problem is we got him as like a
2 or
3.
3.
And
Yeah. It's yeah, I mean it makes me just question how sustainable it is, because it is still June 1st.
Yeah.
And so, let's talk August 1st and we'll see how that's going. I mean, who knows? It could still be working out. I think it's also just one last thing to mention with the pitchers important to mention DL Hall, Jacob Junis, obviously Wade Miley probably not returning this season. But I mean, those are 2 studs, a lefty and a righty, that we kind of have just waiting. I mean, like I still even think with DL Hall, potentially just run an opener with him all the time. Have, Paredes go out and pitch an inning or 2 every day. DL Hall come in, dirty.
Did you see he re-aggravated his knee injury in the minor, in like his rehab start? I think I want to say it was his last pitch of the start. And
Oh.
he re-injured it.
How is he like out for a while now, or?
I am not sure, but I just saw that on
And
Twitter.
Junis has to be coming back somewhat, because he wasn't out for the season, I don't think. I thought he was just a little setback as well.
Let's see.
Knee evaluated. This is some fantastic
This was from
podcasting
April.
going on here.
Yeah.
I was just reading.
Yeah, no. I saw on Twitter though, somebody who's,
Okay.
in tune with like their minor league, like their rehab,
Sure.
where they typically go up to like Appleton or whatever it is, for
Right.
rehab starts. It was like on his last pitch, he appeared to, kind of re-aggravate and that knee to where I don't think it's anything super serious, or we probably would have heard about it, but it's
Yeah.
definitely,
It's definitely not cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right, let's end the pitcher rant here and jump on the last award, the individual series award. Grinding all my life, Blake Perkins. I just didn't know much about Blake Perkins, honestly. I knew he was fast. I knew he was a good defender. I knew he was a switch hitter, and those are pretty good tools to have. So, I mean, he has been really just kind of killing it in every facet of the game, defensively, offensively. Never really worried about his base running just because of the speed he has. And we just have pretty good staff and base coaches to make good decisions as well to help. So, I mean, Blake Perkins, he was a minor league free agent, which I didn't know really, I wasn't really familiar with what that meant until I started playing Out of the Park. Shout out of the Park. Been grinding that. But it's basically when you're in the minor leagues for 6 years, you become a free agent then to the team. So you have to be like signed to a deal. And he was I want to say, I don't know if it was just the Yankees farm system, but he was in there. He played over 700 minor league games in his career. And I mean, that's just grinding. Like that's love of the game. Like,
Yeah.
like it is not easy to do that. How many dudes go, they play 3, 4 years in the minors, maybe an independent ball league, and then they're done. Like,
Yeah, I mean, especially, minor leaguers aren't getting paid the same
no.
rate these big leaguers. They're not getting the same amenities. They're on the road.
Yeah.
They're not taking planes, they're on buses, they're staying in, probably cheap motels. And
Right.
I've heard a lot of them have to get jobs in the off season
Yeah.
because they don't make enough. So
I mean, you're trying to perfect your craft while also like working at.
you have a family.
You're like the Chick-fil-A guy too. Like
Yeah.
that's, I don't know, it's kind of crazy, but I just want to shout him out just for that. And he's been like, I mean, a real big shock to the team. And honestly, like it's great having him do this, but it kind of makes me wonder like what happens when Garrett Mitchell comes back. Because
we're talking about this a bit, yeah.
Because like I mean, where does he fit in? You don't want to like break up if we have something good going on here. Obviously, like Mitchell can go down and maybe have his little rehab assignment too to give him some more time to kind of figure out what to do here. And who knows? Maybe Perkins cools off by then. Maybe Freelick cools off and needs some time, or
but then you got
whatever happens. Churio,
he could be heating up, and we have so many outfielders. You can't take Yelich out too.
Right, and he's having his best like our best season as a hitter. Probably, I mean, on the team this year, he's probably our best hitter. I mean, Contreras has been fantastic and obviously the defense of being a catcher helps as well. But I mean, the OPS of Yelich is still quite a few points ahead of Contreras. Obviously, hasn't played as many games.
Almost 100, and they're about the same average. And I mean, Yelich is Yelich. You can't take Yelich out of the lineup.
Yeah, kind of just a leader. I mean,
he's having his best season since he broke that kneecap. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's going to be interesting because you'd floated, maybe they platoon Perkins and Mitchell and then Freelick and Churio.
I can see that just because I know Perkins is a switch hitter. His dominant side is the right side. He gets most of his power out of that side. That's why, and obviously he hits fine as a lefty as well. But we'll typically, when he's batting lefty, see a bunt attempt almost, unless it's a bad situation, a bunt. I mean, he almost bunts nearly, it's got to be like 50% of the time when he's in the left-hand batter's box. So seeing a platoon of those two, Yelich a mainstay in left field, Perkins and Mitchell kind of rotating in center, and then obviously Freelick the lefty and Churio the righty kind of platooning as well. That might give Churio some more time to settle in, figure himself out as a big leaguer. Obviously, the big contract makes you want to play him more, but it doesn't want you don't want to destroy his confidence though too. So I mean, finding a balance is important.
And also, Freilick is kind of starting to, I wouldn't say break out quite yet, but he's starting to heat up.
Yeah.
Starting to kind of hit balls hard, put together some good at bats too. So I mean, it's.
Yeah, you don't want to take him out of the lineup for sure. I mean, and he's good on the base paths and in the field too. So
that's where they get into the idea of potentially playing him at third, which then maybe
and Joey Ortiz. Where does he go? Is that potentially when you ship Adames off?
Yeah, because you can't move Terang and Ortiz out of the infield.
No, I mean if they're gonna play the way they are now, like if they can do this for 162, like you need to start them every day.
Yeah, absolutely. But
so I don't know.
Adames is also playing.
Yeah, what do you do? Do you sell high on Adames now? Like obviously, I love Willie Adames. I have nothing against him, but when there's reports coming out saying we basically can't re-sign him, which is crazy to me because that just loses all of your leverage with being able to, negotiate with him, negotiate with other teams about him. Like, I think that's kind of a weird move, which maybe I just interpreted the news story a little wrong, but.
Yeah, it just seems kind of like bad faith to put out there that, essentially it was like, oh, he's going to be too expensive for us to afford. Like, why would you publicly say that?
Yeah.
Like middle of the season where like, he's also not playing bad. Like he's hitting for power. He's not playing great defense as always. Like if he goes and gets a bag in free agency after the season, that's great. But why would you say that in the middle of the season?
Right.
Potentially when you're trying, towards the trade deadline, trying to shop him.
Yeah, and I mean I don't think that's why it's tough as a small market team because I don't think like the Burns deal. seeing something like that, oftentimes you think, oh, selling. Oh, they're, maybe trying to retool. I
Yeah.
know that's the term that is now used instead of rebuild. It's a little more,
We're
organ.
not tanking fully. We're just,
Right.
trying to add better pieces to the team.
Right, just trying to make it work for the budget that we have. But I think like the Burns deal for, bigger market teams, people see that don't understand that that's not like us giving up.
Yeah, we're
Like,
not giving up because we traded them. We believe
right.
what we have in the farm system. I mean, which we have a lot of pitchers in the farm system that are kind of starting to.
They're studs down
Yeah,
there.
like you got Jacob Mizorowski, you got
Yep.
Robert Gasser came up this year. Was with the
Yep. There's some
minors.
other guys who I've seen throwing down there who are having some pretty crazy starts
Yeah.
to the year. I can't think of the names off the top of
Yes.
my head, but
Some guys in like low A, high A
Mhm.
are kind of starting to make waves and like minor
Yep.
league Twitter, so giving up Corbin Burns, we're not giving up on winning.
No.
It's just,
Yep.
and especially when we got Joey Ortiz in return and DL Hall.
Yeah, which obviously Hall still has to prove himself, and in the small sample size we've seen of him, hasn't been super impressive. But I mean,
Joey Ortiz has been one of the best
yeah,
third basemen
Joey
in
Ortiz
baseball.
and Joey Ortiz. I think that it was kind of packaged around DL Hall, which makes
Yeah.
it interesting that Joey Ortiz kind of got thrown in as well.
Yeah.
At least in terms of MLB experience, it was
Hmm.
packaged around DL Hall, which
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Joey Ortiz has been a good bonus piece then if that's what he was in the deal. So can't be more happy with that. Moving on, BNB trivia. After the I-94 series in Milwaukee this week, what is the Cubs record through the month of May? Option A, 10-16, B, 11-15, C, 0-26, or D, 0-162. I guess they played the entire season in the month of May. So if you, yeah, yeah, if you're not watching the YouTube video, there's a funny, just look up Craig Clownsell on Google Images and find the sweater. It's like a black hoodie with a green background. I don't know who made this picture, but it's pretty funny. But you got any guesses for the Cubs record?
I I want to say I maybe saw it. I want to say it's A. I have no idea though.
And if you said A, you're correct. They are 10-16 this month. They were kind of competing for the division with us to start the season. They were, off to a decent start behind Shota Imanaga, and then, the lineup having some struggles, but also like having Pete Crow Armstrong come on and be a good defender. They were an all right team through April. May has not been as kind to them though.
Yeah.
This
Craig Counsell managing finally
Yeah,
starting to
yeah,
show.
starting to catch up.
You'll see too on Cubs Twitter. They're finally starting to understand
Yep.
what we went through and just
Yeah, I just
Really
think it's
doesn't
funny
matter,
they
yeah.
thought that like getting him and signing him to that huge deal that he got as a manager is like what did they think they were doing? Like they thought they ate for real.
Yeah,
They thought they ate left no crumbs for real.
and, we never kind of like we never really won anything of we won the Central under him a couple
Right.
of times, but we didn't go much past that. We didn't win a World Series,
No.
obviously. So then to go out and offer that manager, to be the highest paid manager in
Mhm.
baseball,
Interesting.
yeah, it's an
Interesting
interesting
move.
choice.
But you know what? That's the Cubs. Up next, we had the White Sox. Obviously, well, I mean, we're gonna release this during the White Sox series. We watched the first game. It was last night. Kind of shit on them as expected. I want to say it was like 12-6, something like that.
As we should. They're
12-5. Yeah.
12-5. As we
Yeah.
should have.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean-
they're, no offense to them, but they are in a rough.
I mean, their record is 15-42. They're not great. Obviously, it's kind of crazy to think like I think it was 2021 or I don't remember what year it was. I mean,
just
they were
got the
like
video on
competing.
this. Yeah, they were
They were like competing and they were a potential like
World
I mean,
Series.
they
were
won the
World
division,
Series
I
or
think.
bust.
Yeah.
Like the thing going around is like behind Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez.
Yeah,
and then they
Moncada is a solid guy.
that
Pitching staff,
yeah.
Giolito, Cease, like those guys. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy how fast they fell apart. And I think Liam Hendricks they had as well. And it's kind of sad. Tim Anderson was a stud.
Yeah,
Now
that's
he's
right.
kind of he was like one of the worst major leaguers last year.
Yeah.
Kind of hard fall off for
Yeah.
him.
That shows like how volatile baseball is. I
Yeah.
mean, a couple seasons ago, they're considered World Series contenders before the season. Obviously, in season, they got hit with injuries and
Right.
all that. But I think, while we haven't quite gotten over that hump of winning a World Series,
Mhm.
we've been consistently good
Right.
for
A long time.
like at least the past 6, 7 years.
Yeah, I
and
mean, I
getting
think back to
attention.
even like when we were in 2012, like
Yeah.
NLCS, I mean, or I think it was 2011, 2012 time frame when
Yeah,
Braun was all fucking steroided out.
Yeah,
Like,
winning MVP.
yeah, I mean, like
Those were the days.
those
man.
were the days, man. Little Carlos Gomez action in there.
Is that post
Man,
Prince Fielder? Was that?
I think it is. I think it's
Yeah.
just after Prince. Remember Eric Thames?
Yeah,
him
he
for
had
a
a
while.
crazy
I
run.
think, yeah, I think he had a year where he hit like I don't know if it was 40 or 30.
It was like 40 some
runs.
home runs.
He had some
Let's
nukes
go.
one season. It was like 1 year he really went kind of nuts.
Remember
And then he was
Chris
just like,
Davis?
oh,
He had a
he was my
crazy-
favorite player,
he
man.
was-
Left fielder, hits nukes. He went out to Oakland then later. I don't know if he got signed to a long deal there.
Eric
but-
Thames is also with Oakland.
Damn, Eric.
Let's see. I mean, I will find it here quick.
Yeah, he had a nuts
Let me go
season.
to Baseball Reference.
Yeah, I mean, that was fun to watch. Definitely tangented out here. This is
This
we're kind of starting to lose it. We'll end the episode with the little Eric Thames home run high season. I'm guessing like
31. I thought it was.
yeah, 31 in 2017, which is crazy because he had 5 years off from the big leagues, came back and hit 31 nukes.
At 30.
Yeah, dude,
I
it's
could've-
crazy story.
I could have swore if you showed me highlights, I would have thought it was 50.
I would have.
I swear it was 50.
Like I have the number like 42 in my head of like a
Maybe
home
you're
run
thinking of
number.
Chris Davis.
Chris Davis was hitting nukes too. I
He had that.
his was around the same time frame of like
They were
2016
power
to
hitter.
17 maybe.
He was before that. like
Oh
30.
dang, that's really old.
No,
27 maxed out. He led the league though, 48 in 2018. All right, with that, B&B beer requests. Obviously, haven't been having as many beers on the pod. I've been kind of having too many beers off the pod, too many drinks away. A little hungover when we're recording sometimes. So, if you have any beers though you've been dying to try, you have a go-to beer that I need to try, comment or reach out on any of the socials listed below with what I should drink next. With that being said, let me get the last sip of this energy drink. Nice. And with that, the drink is gone. The podcast is done. Thank you for listening, everybody. Have a good one.